Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
Which god do you want to talk about first?
Cosima, of course. Cosima, god of the Voyage. Dude, Kaldheim is not joking. So Cosima, god of the Voyage, the front side is 2 and a blue for a 2/4 legendary god. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile Cosima. If you do, it gains whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. If Cosima is exiled, you may put a Voyage counter on it. If you don't, return Cosima to the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it and draw X cards where X is the number of Voyage counters on it. And then vehicle, the other side is a vehicle, the Omenkeel, which is 1 and a blue for a legendary vehicle, 3/3, crew 1. Whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles that many cards from the top of their library. You may play land cards from among those cards for as long as they remain exiled.
Man, that Omenkeel is very, like... It doesn't have any evasion, but it's very Smuggler's Coptery to me. That's the sense.
That it's a 2-cost, crew 1, 3/3 that has library manipulation on its vehicle.
I mean,
that's kind of what they're going for, is to try to hit that note with you.
Straight up card advantage, actually. It's a little bit nicer.
Sort of. I mean, you get less selection instead of more. Because, like, you can only play land cards from among those cards, you know?
Yeah, but it's raw. You don't got to trade.
Yeah, so you do get extra land this way. Good with the Smuggler's Copter. Discard the land to the copter. So, talk to me about Cosima, man. So, first of all, what do you think of this vehicle? 2 costs, 3/3. It's not colorless, you do actually have to have blue. But it crews with gosh darn near everything, including every random rogue, no matter how many cards are in decks, So, and then the milling, it doesn't actually put any cards in their graveyard, but you are running them out in case things end up going that way. And you do get a bunch of land. And remember, you get to play the land even if they later kill the Omenkeel.
So,
the land are just yours now over time.
So I think that there's a lot to like about this card, right? So 3/3 for 2 with like kind of that false haste that any vehicle has as a feature. I think that this is very
close. Is not. I don't know, haste. That's a weird way to describe it. You're saying it's fake haste insofar as it literally doesn't have haste.
But
you're saying if they sweep the board, then you can attack again, or if they kill your only creature, then you can play a new creature and get a crew.
Every new guy gets haste. That's what I mean, right? It's like a fake haste, But all the future creatures that you play have a kind of haste, right? And I think that the cost of 2 and the 3/3 body and the potential card advantage and the fake haste altogether.
Well, I mean, not unless they kill this card, right? It's not this is just a 3/3 on the ground. Why isn't this dead?
I mean, yeah, but they kind of have to. It's narrow when they can kill it unless they're using artifact destruction, right? I mean, I think
that's true. That's fair.
It's not easy to kill, right? I mean, it's easy to kill if you have dedicated cards to kill it, right? But if somebody's going to Wrath of God you or something, it's going to stick around.
It dodges a few things. Yeah, it dodges the glass glass casket. It dodges a few things.
Yeah, it's not immortal. It's not indestructible, but no. I think it's got a nice there's 3 or 4 overlaps of things that are attractive about the Omenkeel. So,
and then what about the Cosima himself, though?
So this is a card that is full of words, right? So, but we could
no question about that.
A lot of words on this.
Let's unpack. So, what are your favorite 10 lines on this card? Is it the text box?
I mean, I would just start with 2 and a U for a 2/4, legendary creature god. Not interested.
Okay.
Need something more.
Yeah, but I've seen worse.
I have.
I'm not that far off. You telling me if you don't draw if this was just 2/4 draw card? But anyway,
2/4 draw card for 3. That's actually that people play
sick.
infinity variations of 2/2 draw a card for 3, right? Trinket Mage,
Right.
Treasure Mage, Borderland Ranger. Those guys are all... I mean...
So this card is a 2/4 that when a land enters the battlefield under your control, if Cosima is exiled, and remember, you can only exile him on your upkeep, right? So you play him, and there's a 1-turn window where your opponent might be able to deal with it. Right, but he is a 2/4. But if you want to send him on a journey, you can. And if you send him on a journey on your upkeep, now you kind of have this ability of when a land enters the battlefield, you got 2 choices. So the first choice is to just put a Voyage counter on him and do nothing. Right? The alternative is to put him back into the battlefield with a number of +X, with +X, where X is the number of Voyage counters, and draw X cards. So, turn 3, you play him. Turn 4, you now have nothing, and you've just invested your 2/4 on a mission to hopefully do something. It doesn't do you any good to just bring him back immediately.
No.
Like, what are you even doing? Right?
You gotta wait a while.
So on turn 4, you let him come back, or you don't have him come back. You let him stay gone, and he gets his first counter. On turn 5, assuming that you have a 5th land, then you can have him come back as a 3/5 that draws a card. That is not a great deal for 3 mana, suspend 2 with all the vulnerabilities. So let's keep waiting.
Some of the vulnerabilities, right? They gotta nail him on turn 3. Right? Like, if it's not on turn 3, you gotta have weird stuff like take a card that's in exile and put it in their graveyard. One of those.
Right, yeah. Okay, so if on turn 6 you play another land, then you can bring him back. And you do get the option to choose. You don't have to commit at the beginning, which is kind of nice. But then on turn 6, you can bring him back as a 4/6 and draw 2 cards. Now you're starting to get somewhere. And one of the interesting things is that even though if you send him on a second journey, you've wasted the +1/+1 counters, sometimes you just need a couple cards right now. Tell him to bring back however much fish he's got. Bring that back. Let's eat that. And he goes back out to sea and tries to bring some more. Kind of a nice combo with Shadow the Sky type deals, too.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, man?
I think this is
Does Cosima do it for you?
I think that there's a narrow band of matchups where Cosima is unbelievably good, right? And then I think that he's pretty, let's call it acceptable in some other areas, and that I shudder to think he's a great main deck card for the average deck that might want to have a creature on 3. Right? So if you're playing...
I disagree.
You disagree, right? Which of those
strongly
with all 3 statements?
Yeah, I think he's a main deck card. I think he's going to go in a lot of decks. I think he's great as a 3-cost creature on turn 3. I don't think there's a narrow band of matchups where he's good. I think he's widely good. And I think this card is excellent.
So I was thinking like the most exciting thing potentially for me for Cosima is Cosima playing that sort of Aeon Chronicler role where you have a ton of mana and you dump it into the Aeon Chronicler and they can't stop you from drawing a bunch of cards. And the fact that you get this XX giant thing at the end of it is kind of sideways to that, right? So I think that like that's the most exciting possibility for me for Cosima. Like you play it, it doesn't go away immediately, and then it just sits there and accumulates value for you for an eventual burst of card advantage that you will use to overwhelm a control opponent. So
well, and you also have the option. You'll have this big threat that you can then exile again if you are so inclined.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of weird stuff. Like, for example, your opponent has it in their head. They're like, oh, okay, he's just going to grind me with this thing for a few turns. I'm just going to tap out for what do you call it? And then, but they weren't thinking straight. And you're like, I'm bringing it back this turn. Not too big.
I love that all your plans involve your opponent not thinking straight. I love it.
Yeah, so I really try to put myself in my opponent's shoes, and that's what I would do. I would not think straight, and they would get me with, like, the 3/5 version. It would get me good. It would kill my Planeswalker. They would draw a card, and I'd be like, man, I thought they were going to go for at least the 4/6.
Dude, you really don't think this card is great?
I mean, I think it could be great, yeah, but I mean, I think I have a very different idea about which cards are great than you know, maybe than you do, right? I love cards that are positioned well. Those are the cards that make me happy. Cards that are just great on rate are like, I feel like everyone figures those out.
Yeah, but we're talking about whether you said there's a very narrow band of matchups where you'd want this, and it's not a good main deck card.
What I'm saying is, I think there's a narrow band of decks that are like, Cosima is an insane sledgehammer tool against them, right? So, like, if you're...
No, I don't. I think you're talking about Aeon Chronicler, not about Cosima. Cosima's not going to play out like Aeon Chronicler. I think that's a trick that... I mean, yeah, he's got that as part of his toolbox, but that's not like his first or second job, or third. It's not even his third job. It's just like, oh yeah, he just has that in his kit. It's one of the things he's got, in reserve. Isn't what you wanted, like, I mean, is it crazy to just, you've got Thieves Guild Enforcer, right?
Well,
and you've got Soaring Thought Thief. Both of these cards, so first of all, they let you surprise, have a crew for your Omenkeel, whether you just, your opponent kills stuff, whatever, you flash down the rogue and still have to protect, or maybe your opponent kills a creature and then you surprise, can make a blocker out of the Omenkeel. Whatever it might be the case, it's very efficient to just go turn 1 Thieves Guild Enforcer, turn 2 the Omenkeel.
I buy that.
And it's also efficient, given that he's a legend. You can play Omenkeel on 2, and then play Cosima on 3, and crew the Omenkeel with Cosima.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Like, as far as legends go, it's a way superior legend to draw 2 copies of early on.
So, I was kind of imagining, like, that you might play Cosima in a Merfolk deck, like in one of the Aether Vial sort of Merfolk decks, in the same kind of spot where those decks might historically have wanted to play a Smuggler's Copter. The Omenkeel can play that role, and then Cosima's actually a pretty good card to play for free, right? So you could play it out, not actually use your mana for it, and then immediately exile it.
If you're playing Merfolks, dude, you got all these 2-mana 5/5s. And it's not like you're getting a lot of value out of all the extra land. If you want to be using Cosima, some of the things that are part of the equation are, you got small enough creatures that you're efficiently crewing the Omenkeel. You've got use for these extra lands you're drawing. You've got prospects of winning games that stretch a little bit, even if you're not trying to make that the case. You've got the ability to play 2 ways. Like, you want to be like, Cosima's a good blocker. It really is. And the Omenkeel is a good attacker. It really is. And it gives you options. Like, both the Omenkeel and Cosima can dodge sweepers. That's really interesting, right?
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, like you said yourself, like, it can dodge your own sweepers.
Totally. And if you're playing with cards, whether they're cantrip dudes or tokens, like if your Elspeth makes some 1/1s, one of them is like a great pilot for, a captain for the Omenkeel. And the fact that you can keep playing land that you get from the Omenkeel, that ensures that you're powering up Cosima. Like, I think you just want to play 4 Cosima's main deck. And you've got to be playing a deck, a small, like, it's an unusual combination of things, but like, even if the Ruin Crab can't power him up, it's not like you need the Ruin Crab if you're not going to just be milling them out. But I think that both rogues and then, here's some great captains for the Omenkeel. Skyclave Apparition. great captain. Maybe Charming Prince or Baron Tolarian Archmage, you know? What about the 2-cost double-faced Llanowar Elf? You know, like if you just... I mean, you can use Llanowar Visionary as well, but like, what if you're just using your double-faced cards, your 1/1 that taps for green? Like, that guy's a great crew.
This might
what
just
about your
be my,
Omen of the Sun dude, Omen of the Sun tokens?
Oh, that's pretty hot. I'll give you that one.
Oh yeah, totally. And I mean, Tangled Florahedron was born to crew some stuff like this. Plus, it's kind of dope that there's going to be times where you just play the Tangled Florahedron tapped on turn 6 because you just got to keep Cosima finding new lands to fish or whatever. Dude, this card is fantastic.
You know who I like
you don't believe it.
with the Omenkeel?
Who?
Yorion. Then I can like flip it into Cosima if I want.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Particularly if you stacked up enough extra land that you know you're good for the next 3 turns. I think Yorion's great with it.
I was going to say, maybe this is my Seagate restoration. Or like I didn't like it.
Seagate, dude. But a lot of people slept on Seagate Restoration.
It's like the best card in that set. If you look at performance,
totally.
It's like everywhere, like, every format.
But is it like you don't think this card's not just Thassa, God of the Sea? Like, do you think a lot of people are going to sleep on this card?
Were people sleeping on Thassa?
No, and that's my point. People slept on Seagate Restoration. They didn't sleep on Thassa. They thought Thassa. I mean, maybe they thought Thassa. Yeah, I guess people slept on it a little, but not really. They knew it was going to be good. They didn't know it was how good, right? But this card's like the range on this card is good to great, right? I don't know. We'll see. Put me down for I am a total 100% buyer of Cosima, God of the Voyage, and the Omenkeel.
All right, so I like the Omenkeel more than I like Cosima, God of the Voyage, but conveniently, they're on one piece of cardboard. So
it's also nice that some of the things that are good against one are not good against the other. You know, if your opponent's got artifact removal, boom, play Cosima. If your opponent's got lightning strike, boom, play Cosima, right? But however, if your opponent's got call it Terror or whatever, then you got the Omenkeel. Or Wrath of God, you got the Omenkeel. All right, well then let's jump to another one then, because I'll be interested to see what you think after you play literally 2 games with Cosima.
I mean, I
one on each side.
I think the one with the opposite side is going to be the more telling one, right? I was thinking, when I asked that question, about Toralf, the God of Fury. 2 RR for a 5/4 trample. Whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess non-combat damage, so that's like I lightning bolt your Llanowar Elf or something, Toralf deals damage equal to the excess to any target other than that permanent, but excitingly, Toralf's Hammer is on the other side, 1 in a red, for a legendary artifact equipment. A quick creature has 1 in a red, tap, unattached Toralf's Hammer. It deals 3 damage to any target. Return Toralf's Hammer to its owner's hand. A quick creature gains +3/+0 as long as it's legendary. You don't like this one?
No, talk to me. It sounds like you like this one.
I think that I might just be emotionally vulnerable to this one because I love Thor.
Oh, you love this one.
I love Thor. Like, I love Thor. I love Mjolnir.
Okay.
I love... Yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't bum you out at all that anybody, no matter how unworthy, can just pick this hammer up?
But they can't necessarily get +3/+0.
Yeah, but they can still throw it.
They can. And it'll come back to hand.
Yeah.
So... Yep. I did kind of...
Yeah, but you're worthy.
Maybe. Probably not. It was a big deal when Steve Rogers picked up the hammer, man, and he's like the nicest guy in the entire world.
Dude, the sickest part, too, was when Steve Rogers realized he could pick it up, and Thor was like gonna like lose his mind, and Steve Rogers fakes it like he can't lift it up so as to not blow up his spot.
Well, until he has
No,
to,
seriously.
right? Yeah.
Until later in the later movie, but it's just so sick that, like, I mean, that's just such a perfect encapsulation of Steve Rogers' personality. But anyway.
Yeah, so this card is not the best. I just emotionally like it a lot. I mean, although a 5/4 trample for 4, that's well within the conversation for some for some formats. I think that this ability, which is some version of it is on a lot of text.
5/4 trample is pretty freaking far from 2021 standards, man.
Yeah. But if you combine
like a 5/4 trample for 3 would see play, so it's only off by a mana.
I mean, a 5/4 trample for 3 would barely see play, right? Like, it has seen play, but it's a.
So there's two interesting parts about this. The first is that on its own, the card's not very good. The non-combat damage spilling over, yeah, maybe it's fine. It depends on what kind of damage and stuff there is. Some of the new damage spells are kind of big, so if you end up with some damage spells that are dealing 4 and 5, then you might be doing something. The equipment is really unwieldy, right?
It's very
You have to spend 2 to play it, 2 to equip, and 2 to use the ability. So then you've just spent 6 and you did 3 damage.
But
so
it's very Hammer of Bogardonish, right? So, like, if they can't stop you...
Which is also not good, but yeah.
Well, I mean, there was a time when, like, the Hammer of Bogardon, that was
you
just
also
the inevitable.
You don't get the damage till the end. And somebody has to wield the hammer in the first place.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
A couple things have to go for you.
So, and when you have stuff that can, like, search for equipment and stuff, it can't get this because this is on the backside. Now, all that said, Toralf, God of Fury, has some combos. If you got some way to do, like, a big amount of damage, like, if you tore off God of Fury and you can, like, do excess damage to a lot of things at the same time, you can just go upstairs to the face with all of it, right?
Like some kind of a blasphemous act or some kind of a bonfire.
Yeah. Yeah, like, he doesn't need to live either, though. So you can do AoE stuff like Blasphemous Act, yeah, which, if you Blasphemous Act, they're taking 100, right?
Yeah, if they've got any guys, yeah, they're going to get destroyed. I like that. I'm in now. Toralf, Reckoner, put them together. That's my new deck.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is good. Boros Reckoner damage also triggers Toralf anyway. And you can loop it back around. Like, you go, your Boros Reckoner deals... Say your Boros Reckoner is dealing some damage to something. If it's enough to overkill the thing, then you can have that damage bounce back. And, you're not even really doing anything by having it bounce back, though.
I mean, you could just deal the overload to them, to their face. That's still good.
Right. Yeah. But I don't know, man.
Now that I
could have been sweet.
So I do think that this card is like... I actually thought at the beginning of talking about it that the card was like kind of medium minus, but, my heart was in it. But now I actually like it better when we were talking about Blasphemous Act and Boros Reckoner. Although I shudder to imagine the speed of a format where that's good.
I mean, it depends on what they reprint, right? Like, in the next year, they might just print Blasphemous Act. And that could easily be good in Standard.
Well.
What do you want to be like what's going to be doing the extra damage, though? It's not like there's anything in the format that's really, like, doing that much damage, right?
I don't think there's a lot of damage-based overload, no. I mean, like, I think that this is a nod to all those times where you lightning bolted a Birds of Paradise or something. That feels good, but...
So you can use Blitz of the Thunder Raptor to do, like, a ton, right? That's something. Deal damage to target creature or player, planeswalker equal to the number of instants and sorcery cards in your graveyard.
I mean, Is a deck that has Blitz of the Thunder Raptor want to spend space on Toralf though? Like
I don't know.
They're kind of in it for the instance, right?
Yeah, but maybe you have a lot of instants. Like a lot of instants and sorceries. Like if you just have a lot of spells, that's good with Toralf anyway. Yeah?
It is.
Maybe?
It is. But it makes your Blitz worse. Until you have them together. Then it's much better.
Yeah. So, put me down for medium minus, but it's not a 0.
All right, here's one that I did not understand.
Dude, Perforos' Intervention. That's another big damage spell. Boom. All right, what's the one you didn't understand?
I didn't understand, but now I think I understand it. But man, is this card confusing. Tybalt's Trickery.
Yep.
One in
so
an
Tybalt's
R.
Trickery, yeah, it's got 2 aspects to it. Go ahead, yeah.
So it's instant, counter target spell. Okay, so I just read those words, and I'm like, 1 in an R, counter target spell. I'm in. And then there was the additional words. Choose 1, 2, or 3 at random. Its controller mills that many cards, then exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card with a different name than that spell. They may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Then they put the exiled cards on the bottom of their library in a random order. Like, that's a lot of words for the functional thing that's going on here, I think.
So there's two primary functional elements of this card. The first is ostensibly the trickery part. And that's where, like, for instance, if you counter your opponent's counterspell, you're countering it, your thing's going to resolve, and then they randomly end up opting instead or something, right?
But they might get something really good, right?
They play a Wrath of God, and then you counter it, and then they end up getting an Oblivion Ring. Right. It's not the most efficient at that, but it does give red a counterspell if you're playing a format like Pioneer and you want to have a counterspell against a combo deck, because when they go and they play their victory condition, and then you just trickery it, and they end up getting like some random 0-cost artifact that doesn't do anything. Right? That's pretty good.
Yeah. It's kind of Remandish, but permanent, right? It's like weirdly.
Yeah.
I mean,
but they also get Black Lotus. So the weird part is the Tybalt. You see, it's not just the trickery.
It's Tybalt's trickery.
So you can counter your own spells. If you do this fair and square, maybe your opponent tries to counter your spell, and you go, well, I didn't want it anyway. And you counter your own spell, and then you end up having, something else that resolves with chances of something even bigger. Right? Like maybe you end up just Tybalt's triggering and you end up getting like a dragon on turn 4 or something, But if you want, you can try to abuse it.
That's
if you go really hard. If you go really hard, I think Frank Karsten did the math and said the best version he came up with in his cursor, like he didn't let it run more than a day, but like in his simulation, the best he came up with is the deck is 4 Violent Outbursts, 1 Tybalt's Trickery, 2 Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, 53 land. And if you play this deck and you mulligan aggressively, you just have to mulligan to death to try to set it up, But what you do is on turn 3, you Violent Outburst, and then you're inevitably going to find Tybalt's Trickery. You Tybalt's Trickery, the Violent Outburst that's still on the stack. You can now not hit Violent Outburst anymore, nor can you hit a Tybalt's Trickery since there was only the 1. So the end result is, as long as the Emrakuls aren't in your hand or the top 1, 2, or 3 cards of your deck, you just get Emrakul the Aeon's Torn on turn 3. And you cast it. So you do get to actually draw.
You get the whole thing.
You get everything. You get the whole shebang, and your opponent is dead. And he said that the odds of that are 83%.
So explain to me why we wouldn't play more Tybalt's Trickeries. Because it seems to me that you're going to have enough land, right? You have so many land. Even if you're just hard mulliganing to the Violent Outburst.
Okay, so let's walk through it.
I don't want to mill the Tybalt's Trickery. That's the... Actually, how does that... That never happened.
You don't.
What if I draw the Tybalt's Trickery by accident?
Then you can still just cast it. You just cast it on a Violent Outburst.
But I have to wait until turn 5.
Right. Now, if you have 2 Tybalt's Trickeries in your deck, when you Violent Outburst, you get 1, right? And then Tybalt's Trickery resolves. Now you have a 2/3 chance of getting Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, and a 1/3 chance of getting a Tybalt's Trickery.
But then can't you just Trickery again and then just get the...
What are you going to Trickery now? There's no more spells on the stack.
Ah. All right.
So, this seems pretty degenerate. If it really works that way, that's pretty sick. Now, it is pretty all-in Belcher-esque, where your deck doesn't really have a lot of resistance when you're playing 53 land. But you do get to play a boatload of lands with abilities to try to do things, to try to set things up, and to try to both fight through counterplay, fight through the possibility, because this loses to a single counterspell.
Yeah, I think you are probably amazing in game 1. But, there are so many different ways your opponent can fight you. Right?
Yeah.
That's even somebody just wanting to play Edicts. You get the Emrakul and they're like, okay.
Well, yeah, but they do get an extra turn, and your deck has 53 land in it. Lots of them attack. You end up just playing one of those 37 land decks, but you're playing 53 land.
No, I get all that. I'm just saying,
Dude, you can even play with a companion.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, you do. You go get, what's his name, the 5-drop.
Jegantha?
Jegantha.
I guess we'd have to... What companions are available? Jegantha? The permanents that we have are...
Emrakul, and that's it.
That's it. So that's not a really convenient companion slot. It's looking like Jegantha right now.
Yep. And you do have 2 and 3, so your odds and evens. But Jegantha's pretty good in a 53 land deck.
We have 2, 3, and 15. Yeah, so...
Yeah.
I do think that this is extraordinarily exciting.
You also get to play the Eldrazi land. Yeah. So go find Emrakul the hard way.
So here's the thing, right? I don't know. There's a lot of fair decks that can't really beat this even after sideboarding, right? There's a regular red deck. There's they just don't really have cards that can beat that combo.
No, they don't. They could. They'd have to play a different mix of cards. As long as you're just playing something that makes people not able, creatures not able to, or cards not able to be played that way, and that, But, I don't know, man. I think there's something there.
Oh, for sure.
It's the new Belcher.
I like that. So I didn't know what this card did, and then I saw Frank's tweet. After I saw Frank's tweet, I'm like, if they made it for this purpose, which seems weird to me, that they would just make a card like that, then obviously it's awesome, but it just seems crazy that they would do it on purpose. I feel like this is what
they probably did. They just don't care.
Yeah, all right.
If it ends up being a problem, you got to have some amount of that stuff the way that they currently envision some of their high-powered formats like Legacy and Modern and stuff. But, dude, what do you think about that new blue 1-drop, though? Speaking of crews for Cosima. Cosima's the Omenkeel. There's that new snow one, Ascendant Spirit, blue for a 1/1 snow creature spirit. That it's a Figure of Destiny type deal. The first transformation is you can pay snow to turn it into a 2/3 Spirit Warrior, and then you can pay snow to turn it into, if it's already a warrior, to turn it into a Spirit Warrior Angel and make it a 4/4 flyer. And then you can pay snow to, if it's already an angel, to give it 2+1/+1 counters, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So, there's a couple important
It's
notes about this.
the big version is like a 6/6 Ophidian flyer.
No. You might be thinking of the third biggest version, or the third version up.
Yep.
You see, if Ascendant Spirit is an angel, put 2+1/+1 counters on it, and it gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. That makes a lot of sense. What if you just use this ability twice?
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What a dumb card.
So you can just go turn 1, Ascendant Spirit, with your snow-covered island. Turn 2, another snow-covered island, or whatever, snow-covered whatever. But then you go turn 2, make it a 2/3, get in there. Turn 3, make it a 4/4, get in there in the air. Turn 4, make it a 6/6, get in there and draw a card. And at this point, assuming your opponent hasn't been fighting back, they're just already at 8. Next turn, you go to 8/8 and kill them.
Oh my gosh. First of all,
You don't have to play any other cards.
would you just describe this as a figure of destiny, right? Like every version of Figure of Destiny ever has just been cross-archetype fantastic, right? Like Figure of Destiny itself was an awesome card in like legacy burn decks, right? Forget about like its usage in White Weenie, and then like the non-instant activation versions won Pro Tours in the hands of, of Paul Rietzel. Like every card like this ever has been awesome, right? So this card is actually, it's not only I think awesome on its face, it's a little deceptive. Like you pointed it out already. You don't actually need to just put blue into this. Any snow can go into this. So,
Yeah.
like I don't know which snow people are going to be playing, but if you've got like a Boreal guy, like he can tap for it. Like any kind of permanence like that can be helpful. So I think most likely it's going to be in a deck that has a lot of snow-covered islands, but I don't know. See, this card seems fantastic to me. Like, you also don't have to have, like, only snow. Like, you could just make it the 2/3 version for a while and just be like, all right, that was actually a pretty good return. Because you can use stowaway mana for it, right? It's not one of the ones you have to do on your own main phase. Just like,
no.
I didn't use that mana.
The other thing you can do is you can just wait till you have 5, right? Like you can just have Ascendant Spirit crew your Omenkeel for a while, and then be like, surprise, I'm going to spend 5 snow, make my guy a 4/4 immediately, untap, spend 4 snow, hit you for 6 and draw a card.
Oh yeah, for sure. You can, I mean,
yeah.
If you've got 5, you're like, all right.
This is a whole new archetype, man. Ascendant Spirit and Cosima, God of the Voyage, that's a whole new archetype. I mean, it's an old archetype, but it's also a new one relatively.
This card is stunning. I think it's a pretty good candidate for best card in the set. I think. Like, what was the one that was in Khan's block? It was green and then it had black and white activation costs. Like that one was pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this card is substantially better.
Well, you're only a 2/3 at level 1 instead of a 3/3. Right? Like, that's something.
And it also costs 2. Right? Like, different versions have had different amounts of costs that you need to put into them.
Yeah, but, like, I'm saying, like, compared to the Abzan one, it was, like, 1+2 to become a 3/3. Or Student of Warfare, 1 into 3/3 for 2 extra.
Yeah.
But compared to Figure of Destiny, man, the fact that you get the ultimate at 4 instead of 6, because like compared to Figure of Destiny, so at level 1, becoming a 2/3 for 1+2 is worse than 1+1 to be a 2/2. Becoming a 4/4 flyer. A 4/4 flyer is better than the 4/4, but not enough better to justify the 1 mana, although the 1 mana was spent at a convenient time. It's about Figure of Destiny level by level 3. But by the time you get to turn it into a 6/6 flying draw card, you're you're doing some pretty big things compared to Figure of Destiny.
So I think that
the other part about this card that isn't crucial to remember for several formats, this is a spirit, man.
Yeah.
That is a very on tribe.
Well, you got to rework your mana base for it, though. The spirits in the past have not had access to a lot of convenient snow. I think like that's a big difference.
Well,
I'm not hard disagreeing with you, but I think that there's something there.
Well, here's the thing, though. Can't you just play with, like, a lot of fetch lands?
Yeah, you could.
And then you just have, like, one or two copies of Glacial Floodplain in your deck? And lots of Snow-Covered Island and Snow-Covered Plains. Like, you don't have to have a lot of Snow-Covered Plains. You can have some amount of snow, like one Snow-Covered Plains.
You can have one, yeah.
One Glacial Floodplain, and tons of Snow-Covered Islands and fetch lands.
Yeah, that's doable.
And then like a Hallowed Fountain or whatever, you know.
Yeah, I'm just saying you'd have to rework it. It's just not free.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I think this card is great, though.
A plus.
Just the point I was going to make is I think that Figure of Destiny was not ever really that much about getting past like the second level up, right? Like that if you got
this one's very much
about getting to that third level up and more.
Yeah. Well, I love that suddenly it's all about the 8/8 draw 2 cards.
I mean,
that's what you need.
It wasn't before you mentioned it to me, and then I was just like, "There's a good example of somebody not thinking big enough."
Yep, we're gonna need a bigger victory condition here. We're gonna need a bigger 1-drop.
Yeah, this card's so good.
All right, super into it. All right, last card. What about the new Survival of the Fitness? In Search of Greatness, one of many Survival of the Fitnesses, I guess. But In Search of Greatness is the GG enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may cast a permanent spell from your hand with mana cost equal to 1 plus the highest converted mana cost among other permanents you control without paying the spell's mana cost. If you don't, scry 1.
So it's other permanents you control. So you can't play this and then get a 3.
It doesn't do it itself. It's not a Soul Ring, right?
So I think that's a really important thing to know about this card because you just have to have at least one other permanent. But once that gets going, you can kind of hustle.
So here's some things to think about with it. First of all, let's say there's a fail state all the time, right? Like let's say you just never get to play anything. You can just scry 1 every turn.
Oh, that's really good
for 2 mana. That's not the worst floor, right? You could do worse than 2 mana scry 1 every turn as the fail state.
I mean, okay. It's only 2 mana, right? So,
yeah,
that's not going to be the fail state indefinitely. And in fact, I would say it's okay. This is an exaggeration for texture's sake, right? But isn't this kind of Sensei Divining Top level, right? Like 2 total mana, right? So a Divining Top is like 1 mana to play, and then you had 1 mana operating over the course of time. Now, obviously, you don't have some of the tricks with the top, but this isn't so far off from that, right? It's just 2 mana, and then you just get to scry for a while. You're not going to be at failsafe for very long. That's
no, it sets you up. So now here's the other thing. It is very explosive. Let's say you go a 1-drop on turn 1, and then In Search of Greatness on turn 2. On turn 3, you already get to Aether Vial for 2, because you have a 1-cost permanent. You get to play a 2-cost permanent without paying its mana cost. And it doesn't even just have to be a creature. Like you get to play something, but now here's the trick though. It has to be equal. You may cast a permanent spell from your hand with mana cost equal to 1 plus the highest converted mana cost among other permanents you control. So you do get a Soul Ring if you do it in that case. You get 2 mana, and that's dope. But then you have a 2-cost permanent, which means that the only cards you could play for free are a card that costs 3. But you get to play a card that costs 3 for free. Now, you don't have to work your way all the way up the chain like Aether Vial, though. If you just have a 4-cost permanent and you play this, on the next turn you get to play a 5-cost permanent without paying its cost.
So I was thinking, like, in constructing a deck around In Search of Greatness, I was imagining maybe having a large concentration of casting cost 3s. right? So
Why?
2s and 3s. I don't want to go. I don't necessarily want to go that far up because
Why
if
not?
I have a high concentration of these things, then I have a high likelihood of being able to play things for free in combination with the scry. Like I'd actually
Yeah, but don't you want to just have? You want modal cards, right? Like Valky is a 2 and a 7. That's what you want, are
okay.
cards that can be both cheap and expensive. Cosima can be a 2 or a 3.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what you want, is cards that give you 2 options, one big, one small, or whatever. Just two at 2 different costs.
Oh no, that's a really good point. I was kind of thinking about it from the perspective of how do I iterate against the fail state, and then also what kind of games can I play if I don't have anything beyond In Search of Greatness, but what if I have 2 In Search of Greatness? Right? Like now they can play off each other.
Yeah, I also just think you're not going to need that many Black Lotuses before you're really kind of doing it.
Oh, especially if they're generating card advantage. Like, right? Imagine a lot of those cards
selection,
had
but yeah.
the cards that you're playing themselves, right? Like, what if all the
I see.
cards that you're playing are like drawing a card as well? Right? They're going to give you further and further fuel for further and further greatness.
Well, and you get to go back down the chain, right? When you lose your big permanents, because one of the two things is true. Either your big permanent is doing something dope, or they get rid of it. And if they get rid of it, then now you're back down the chain and you can play more stuff for free. This card has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
A lot.
Super, super Aether Vial-ish, kind of
Wilderness Reclamation, Aether Vial. It's only got a little bit of top, but it's got enough. And it comes at the right time. It gives you a divining top when you don't have your stuff together. You know how many times, like even though Aether Vial is amazing and Wilderness Reclamation is amazing, part of Wilderness Reclamation's experience is that you just waste the mana some amount of the time. And some of the Aether Vial, you're just sitting there doing nothing with your Vial, right? But that's fine. You just take it because the card's so powerful when it's good. This card, when instead of just sitting there, it helps you get on with it. It helps you find some way to make it good again.
Yeah.
So I think In Search of Greatness is it's going to be good. There's a lot of counterplay to it. The real fail state is if you're counting on it for the mana and your opponent blows you out by removing your permanents and then or just destroys it, as a cantrip because it's an enchantment or something.
Oh yeah, that's.
But I think this card's good.
I think it's good.
I'm a buyer of this one. It's not Ascendant Spirit, but I am a buyer.
Well, I think that the difference between this card and like Wilderness Reclamation or Aether Vial is Aether Vial and Wilderness Reclamation create board states that win very quickly, right? Like they allow you to snowball into an advantage at a very regular basis, like after they've been in play only for a couple of turns where you end the game. Versus Top, I think, is a thing that is designed to, it's like Jace the Mind Sculptor. You just like build these advantages that are just better and better and better, even though they're not so big, but like they're very inevitable given enough time. And it feels more like that to me.
You know what you can do if you play In Search of Greatness on turn 2? Or even turn 1 if you have an Elvish Spirit Guide. But if you play your Allosaurus Rider, then on your next turn, because Allosaurus Rider's cost is 7, then you can play Grizzlebrand for free from your hand.
Wow.
Yeah. That's kind of, that's like...
I mean, like,
something.
I won the lottery, right? But, like, I really won the lottery with that one, right? Like, you're gonna demolish them. That's all the decks I always lose to, though, right? Can't.
But maybe, I don't know, like, if you're already playing Allosaurus Rider anyway, maybe this card appears in some sort of Neoform deck, right?
I think...
It's not like I could easily see this being a Neoform card.
I mean, it itself is Neoformish, right? So...
Yeah. All right. Well, a lot of bangers this week. Look forward to, and it's not even done yet.
Oh, so pick one. What's your favorite of the week?
My favorite is Cosima.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What do you think
I'm going
is
to play
the
a lot
best?
of this card. What do I think is the best?
Yeah.
It depends on the format. I mean, both Tybalt's Trickery and In Search of Greatness have some powerful moves in certain formats. But I'm going to go with Cosima, God of the Voyage.
Toralf is the red card of my heart. Tybalt's Trickery is the red card of my soulless head.
Awesome, dude. Although maybe I should actually pick Send Spirit. I don't know.
Oh, Send Spirit is interesting.
Looking for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber state.